Hey guys, super excited to have Chico Ramirez here with me. Chico is the owner of White Elm Brasserie here in Houston, Texas. Chico, it's a pleasure to have you. How about to start, you tell us a little bit about you and your company?
Well, fantastic. Thanks for having us on. A little bit about us. For those that don't know about White Elm Brasserie, we're located here at the hard corner of Kirkwood Memorial here in Houston, Texas, part of the Energy Corridor. You can see us online at www.whiteelmbrasserie.com. Um, I'm a veteran of the restaurant and bar industry here in Houston, been at it for about 30 years. I owned two previous restaurants before this, Field and Tides Kitchen Bar, as well as the Boot over closer inner loop side of town. Been a director of operations prior to this, kind of worked my way up from starting as a dishwasher many years ago to now owning my third restaurant.
I started part of my career in restaurants, and I remember those nights where you would go in and somehow you got stuck in dishwashing, and I don't think you're ever as cold, wet, hot, and tired as you are when you leave after washing dishes all night.
No, absolutely not. One of the very first jobs I ever had was at a small barbecue joint up in Austin when I was in college, and we had a rotisserie pit. And once a week, somebody had to climb inside of that pit to shovel out waste grease because the
Mhm.
plug at the bottom always got clogged up. And I was that guy. That was probably the most miserable job I've ever had in the
Yeah.
business.
And I remember most people don't know if you've never worked in restaurants. At the end of the night, the hoods that are over all of the stoves, those have they're like metal radiator um,
They're basically metal filters.
filters. Yeah, and those come down and they have to be washed. And it doesn't matter how you do it, you're going to end up being soaked because when you spray them, it's miserable. So yeah,
Yep.
I'm there with you. So
Yep.
tell us a little bit about, so you've had three restaurants, this is your third. Tell us a little bit about what you attribute your growth to.
It's kind of like the mafia. Once you're in, they never let you out. That's what I tell most people. Um, for me, it's always been an entrepreneurial spirit. My dad, probably the single best guide for me, learning about business, understanding business, how to move forward in business. He's still the controller for our company. Every step I make, financially speaking, and even structurally speaking for growth, always goes through him first. I've always wanted to own my own place. You know what they say, sometimes you don't get exactly what you wish for. It's a tough business, really is a tough business, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love food, I love beverage, I love working with people, talking to new people every day of the week.
So when did you open this restaurant?
We opened this in the absolute worst time of humanity, August of 2020, in the heart of COVID. I
Okay.
signed the lease in late October, early November of 2019, thinking I just sold my interest in Field and Tides. We'd had a great run there. My partner still there doing fantastic things. Found this space and really was excited for the West Side, bringing something completely different and new. And then the world stopped in March of 20, and we continue to move forward. It was a tough run at the beginning. Our bank initially did not want to move forward with loaning us the money, and it really came down to we had to push them almost to a legal point to go ahead and give us the money. And finally, they did. We got the remodel done fairly quickly, about 10 weeks in and out, and opened in August of 20.
Very cool. So it's funny, I moved down here in June of 2020 from New York, and kind of that same thing. Restaurants very quickly had to adapt to COVID. And, now if you go to New York, to a certain extent, restaurants, Restaurant Row, all look a little bit different because now there's outdoor seating, there's outdoor permanent structures that they put in place to be able to get people spacing. And at the end of the day, now it's great because they have additional seating that they didn't have before. you can have open containers now in New York and things like that. So it was painful as we went through it, and I can only imagine in your shoes planning to open during all of that. But I think at the end of the day, it's really helped the industry in a lot of ways become more resilient to things that are challenging and a struggle. So I get that. So to that point, what has been your biggest learning as an employer since you began business?
Well, I would say, at least from the standpoint of this restaurant, like you said, we were all scrambling. I mean, absolutely no idea what the regulations, what new laws may be implemented. For the first 6 months this restaurant were open, we were locked into a pattern of where tables are 6 feet apart. You only have this many people, everybody's in masks. Your operating hours are significantly affected, so you really had to learn how to adapt and adapt quickly. And really the only choices you had were your takeout and to go models.
Mhm.
Um, but with that but but in speaking to that, you also then found out fairly quickly that the supply chain cost of goods began to rise exponentially so quickly, it was hard to keep up with it all. The consumer can only withstand so much of those price increases, so you had to get smart about how you package things, looking for different packaging options, things of that nature. Um, from a hiring standpoint, we were already stressed in the city for good servers, bartenders, back of house, front of house support staff. COVID made that a million times worse. So we had to learn how to operate where managers, owners were taking a much bigger role in actual front of house and back of house operations.
Mhm.
I had to learn very quickly, or excuse me, I had to remember very quickly how to do prep work, sometimes having to hop on the line. Managers had to jump in the front and had to wait tables or had to bartend, things in this nature. So the old adage of somebody wearing a lot of different caps while you're open and operating became very true very quickly.
Yeah, no, I can completely understand that. You mentioned the rising costs being problematic for you. And one thing that I think a lot of people don't know, even if you've been in the restaurant industry before, the proliferation of things like Google Eats or DoorDash or any of the delivery services, oftentimes as a consumer, when I see those, I think, well, gosh, it's really expensive for me to do this. I can't believe the restaurants are getting away with it, but it's really not the restaurants. In any case, you're actually taking oftentimes a lower percentage of the out the door costs because DoorDash or whomever, and I'm not placing blame on any of those companies because they're there for a reason and they've been fantastic, but it really hurts your margins from that perspective as well. So I don't think that a lot of customers know that. How have you handled situations like that?
Well, I'll tell you, and again, not pointing fingers at any of the services, because to some extent, yeah, they were a little bit of a lifeline,
Mhm.
very initial parts of COVID. But for the most part, any one of those singular entities charges us typically a bare minimum of about 20 to 22%. And like you said, most consumers have no idea the operating margins that we have, what the net margins are on what we sell out the door. Most times our margins in this business historically have really been about 15 to 17%. So you're talking about giving away 20% of gross right off the top. Well, your margin just shrunk significantly very quickly. Um, the rising cost of goods, and I say rising because it has not stopped. It has not stopped. Contrary to what anybody may think, it just hasn't. You go to the grocery store today, things still cost way more than they did even 2 years ago.
Mhm.
It's the same for us here in the restaurants. You hear the running joke. I say joke. In the news over the last 2 to 3 weeks, you've seen these viral stories about Five Guys, about McDonald's, about any number of different fast food chains that are charging for their combo meals as much or more than you would find in a sit down restaurant. And that is the absolute God honest truth.
Mhm. No, absolutely. So shifting gears, hopefully something a little bit more pleasant, but maybe not. having worked in restaurants myself, I understand, if your restaurant opens at 11 for lunch and you close at 11 o'clock at night, you're usually there from 6 a.m. to 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's painful at times. How has time management been something that you've worked through, not only from a business perspective, but also balancing that with your personal life?
So being a restaurant owner, you can throw the term work family life balance right out the window. It just doesn't exist. Every day, every week presents something different. For me, I was very fortunate the first 2 years that we were open that I could have a general manager and another manager on staff. But as we continued through COVID, it just became financially impossible to maintain those levels. So I had to jump in and start wearing multiple hats, like I talked about before. I currently work anywhere from 65 to 75 hours a week, typically 6 to 7 days a week. The days that I'm here open to close, I will get here about 6:30 in the morning. I typically don't leave until about 10:30 at night. So it's an extremely long day. Um, it's tough because I've got two young ones. I've got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old. They're both very active in school as well as in after school sports. So you begin to miss you begin to miss a lot of different things that you just can't get back. The best way to manage it, tools like literally getting on a video phone call with them. Hey, how was your day? Such and so forth. Breaking away in the afternoons, even if it's only for an hour, to pick them up, take them home, catch up, things like that. From a business management standpoint, it's tough. Usually I get here first things in the morning, set up the restaurant, and then I try and jump in to catch up with accounting. That's one of the very first things that I do.
Mhm.
Respond to emails, book private events, deal with contracts for private events. I mean, just a little bit of the iceberg that's always oncoming in our ocean.
Very nice. So you mentioned that your dad is involved in your business as well. He's your controller. And I don't believe that your dad was in the restaurant industry. I suspect that your dad was actually in accounting in some way, shape, or form, correct?
Yeah, my dad's been a CPA his entire life. He's been a CFO for a Fortune 500 company or controller for large corporations most of his life, oil and gas specifically.
Okay. And your kids, do you see them following in your footsteps in doing something in the restaurant industry? Or do you think that I'm sure as a father, you're probably like, no, please don't do this. But where do you see them going?
Well, it's wild. The dream was for years, open a company, start a company, get it big enough so that there's something left for them to jump into if they so choose,
Mhm.
which I would love. I really, really would. My daughter, probably a little bit more so than my son, has shown a lot of interest, kind of in how the restaurants work, such and so forth. But they're both very, very active athletes. My daughter is a Muay Thai fighter. She's been fighting now for 6 years. She made the junior U.S. national team last year. We traveled to Turkey for the IFMA junior world championships. My son is kind of a standout baseball player. He's playing for the high school prep team and hopefully goes on to make the high school team next year. So we'll see. It's one of those things. I've always said, hey, if you want to go to college, go to college. If you want to jump into dad's business, jump into dad's business. If you want to be an athlete, be an athlete. But just as long as you're doing something, you got to move forward to be an adult.
Very nice. Very nice. So, along those lines, what qualities do you look for in employees, and how do you foster a productive and positive work environment?
First thing I look for, just to be dead honest, is that sense of personal. I got to get along with you.
Mhm.
The old adage is, work with people you like and then make your life easier, not harder. I feel like after 30 years of being in this business, I'm a pretty good judge of character. So when I meet somebody right off the bat, I can tell pretty much immediately if we're going to get along or not. Trust. I got to be able to trust you. The old adage for, I know I keep using the word adage, but the old adage for bartenders is if I can't trust you behind my bar, handling cash on a regular basis, then I can't trust you at all. And that goes without saying for the entire staff. I have been absolutely blessed in my life with the people I've gotten to work with that continue to work with me. I've never been one to scream out loud, hey, they work for me, they're my employees. No, we're a team. We really
Mhm.
are a team. We're in the trenches with each other, running food, picking up glasses, cleaning plates, the whole 9 yards at the end of the day. So it's really about that trust and that personal connection. I try and stay as involved in everyone as I can without crossing over that line. There's a fine line as a manager, as an owner, where you just really want to be seen as the person that's here to support, but also that your staff knows, hey, I'm the decision maker. It's
Mm.
my money and it's my livelihood at the end of the day. So have respect for me and for what I do. And I'm going to lead by respect. There's nothing someone's going to do here that they're not seeing me do at the same time.
Yeah, very cool. Last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hopefully on a beach sipping a margarita. Uh, 5 years from now, for a long time, I had this, I had this goal in mind that I'd be liquid millionaire by the time I was 50. COVID took that away from me. I turned 50 year before last. My wife and I, we've sunk everything into this project, and we're not walking away from it. 5 years from now, that same goal exists because I got to recapture the 5 years they lost. I'd like to be a liquid millionaire. I'd like to have multiple units. We've got another great concept that we're looking forward to getting started here in the near future, hopefully in 2024. But yeah, this is all I know. This is what I know how to do. This is what I love to do. I've got so many great friends, contacts, a wonderful network here in Houston that I want to continue to expand. I'm a lifer in the restaurant business.
Very cool. Chico, I greatly appreciate the time and the words of insight that you provided, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Fantastic, brother. I appreciate you having us on, and best of luck with this, and look forward to hopefully meeting you soon.
Absolutely, you too. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.